Hello and welcome to Sakitech. In today's video, I will do a full comparison between the HTC One M9 versus the iPhone 6. HTC One M9 is a well-received upgrade to one of the most coveted Android smartphones in the Android world, which was the HTC One M8. On the flip side, iPhone 6 is Apple's ace and one of the most popular and widely used phones in the smartphone domain. Therefore, there is no question that these two phones are some of the top contenders in the smartphone world. HTC One M9 is slightly newer, released in March 2015, whereas the iPhone 6 was released in September 2014. So let's dive into some details and start off by talking about the build quality. The M9 has a gorgeous design and a rock-solid dual-tone unibody aluminum finish. On the front you have the Gorilla Glass 4, which has a best-in-class durability, and on the back you have an attractive hairline finish that screams style. The beauty of this phone is undisputed. But the iPhone doesn't disappoint either. It's crafted out of aluminum with artistic precision, with a sleek, curvy design and a smooth, continuous form factor. Both devices look gorgeous from all angles, so in terms of aesthetic looks, the choice will boil down to personal preference. Go ahead and tell me which one you think looks better and why in the comments below. Now, doing a quick tour around the devices, you will see that at the bottom of each phone you have the charging port and the headphone jack. You only get one set of speakers on the iPhone 6, which is also at the bottom to the right of the charging port, while the M9 comes with dual front-facing speakers with HTC Boom sound, as well as Dolby Audio with 5.1 surround sound experience. There's no question that the quality of sound from HTC One M9 is better, deeper and richer using the onboard speakers due to the Boom sound and Dolby Audio technology. On the top side you have an IR blaster on the M9 with volume and power keys on the right side of the device. And on the iPhone 6, power and volume buttons will be found on the left and right sides. Now let's move on to the screen size and resolution. The iPhone 6 sports a resolution of 1334 by 750 on a 4.7-inch screen, which brings the total screen PPI to 326. The M9, on the other hand, sports a 5-inch screen with a higher 1080p resolution with 441 pixels per inches. With the higher resolution and PPI, HTC One M9 will ultimately end up producing sharper text, images, and videos. There's no question about that. But you will need to inspect your display very carefully to experience this extra bit of sharpness, which most people won't do. It's very important to stress the point that most people won't notice any sort of difference between these two displays in their day-to-day use. The bottom line is that both screens will render equally good viewing angles, great color contrast, and brightness. Again, if you get all scientific and measure all the variables, you will find that in some cases the iPhone 6 will score higher, and in another department the M9 will score higher. But why go to such lengths? I have both of these phones and they both look absolutely fantastic. Still, I'll let the M9 steal the win here due to the higher resolution and PPI. The HTC One M9 sports a 64-bit Snapdragon 810 octa-core processor. Octa means 8, so we get 8 total processing cores. 4 of these cores are clocked at 2 GHz and the other 4 are clocked at 1.5 GHz. You get 3 GB of RAM and Adreno 430 as the graphics chipset, while the iPhone 6 sports an Apple A8 dual-core chip clocked at 1.4 GHz with 1 GB of RAM and PowerVR GX 6450 graphics. On paper, it appears that the HTC One M9 is definitively faster, but I will run a processor and memory benchmark at the end of this video to measure the total processing power to see which one produces more raw horsepower. As for storage, the M9 comes with 32 GB of storage with the ability to add an additional 128 GB using a micro SD card, while the iPhone starts at 16 GB of storage with no storage expansion options. If you want more storage, you will have to buy the costlier 64 GB version or the 128 GB version for the iPhone. So if you're a media hog and love to carry tons of videos, music, and photos, you may want to consider a phone that can handle storage expansion. So now let's take a look at the size and the weight. So the iPhone 6 measures 138.1 millimeters in length, 67 millimeters wide, and 6.9 millimeters thick, and it only weighs 129 grams. whereas the HTC One M9 measures 144.6 millimeters long, 69.7 millimeters wide, and it is 9.61 millimeters in thickness, and it weighs 157 grams. The numbers quickly conclude that the iPhone 6 is definitely the thinner and the lighter device of the two. This, of course, is due to the fact that the M9 sports a larger screen of 5 inches, but regardless, iPhone steals the win here. At the expense of a slightly smaller screen, you get an incredibly light and thin phone, though M9 isn't obnoxiously large either. So next, let's take a look at the software. Here we have the most exciting battle. So let's cover the basics really quick. The M9 comes with the latest HTC Sense 7 skin running atop Android Lollipop, which is the latest version of Android, whereas the iPhone 6 runs on the latest version of iOS 8. When comparing the software between these two phones, everything boils down to the difference between iOS and Android Plus Sense combo. There are two major distinctions we want to look at. First one is customization. Take a look at some of the M9 screenshots here and get a feel for the amount of customization that is possible in Android. In contrast, iOS 8 is as static as ever, with a static lock screen and a static home screen filled with app icons. The most customization you can get out of iOS 8 is changing the wallpaper and creating folders. Now Android, on the flip side, allows for much more, such as the ability of placing gorgeous live widgets on your home screen, which feed you information such as weather, news, calendars, social media feeds, customizable clocks, and such. You can also change the entire theme of your smartphone using custom launchers to fit your personal sense of style. And you can rearrange your home screen and your lock screen with much more freedom, as well as some other advanced abilities. It is important to point out that with the M9, with the latest version of Sense, you actually have built-in options to choose custom themes or even create your own custom themes without even needing any sort of third-party apps. So in the customization and personalization department, the M9 wins hands down. The second important category of comparison is the app ecosystem, and this matters to a lot of people. Apple shines in this department. There's no question that apps that you purchase from the App Store on iOS 8 will be better designed, better optimized, and more fluid than their Android counterparts which you purchase from the Google Play Store. Also, Apple has a greater selection of well-designed games in their App Store, which might be important for smartphone gamers. So if you want to personalize your device to maximum capacity, Android with Sense is better. On the other hand, if you're all about beautifully designed applications that work flawlessly, you should go with iOS 8. Don't get me wrong though, iOS 8 looks beautiful regardless of the lack of customization due to its universally consistent interface. And Android apps are far from disappointing, but they each specifically shine in one of those categories mentioned. Beyond those two differences, both iOS 8 and Android are fantastic operating systems, and that's why they both dominate the smartphone market. But again, it's all about what you want. And one final word on iOS 8 and HTC Sense 7 with Android is that these are both fluid and smooth operating systems with virtually no lag. Now, Android phones used to lag in the good old days, but HTC and its Sense interface is smooth as silk, just like iOS 8. So do not worry about either system lagging. Next up, let's talk about the camera. So the iPhone 6 comes with an 8-megapixel rear-facing iSight camera, whereas the HTC One M9 comes with a 20-megapixel rear-facing camera. Both phones offer flash, which is extremely useful when you need some extra light in poor lighting conditions. Now, we don't just take photos with our smartphone's rear cameras. We also shoot tons of video. So let's cover that as well. Both the M9 and iPhone 6 offer 1080p video recording at 30 frame rates per second or 60 frame rates per second. Both phones offer slow motion video, but the M9 is limited to 120 frame rates per second, while the iPhone 6 can go as much as 240 frame rates per second for super slow motion video capture. What the M9 lacks in super slow motion, it makes up for by allowing you to record super high resolution 4K video at 30 frame rates per second, which is absolutely fantastic, and the iPhone does not have that. Now, as far as the rear camera quality goes, photos taken on the iPhone 6 will look superior compared to the HTC One M9 under low light and nighttime conditions. Otherwise, in daytime conditions with ample amount of light, you can snap some good imagery using either camera. So iPhone performs great under all lighting conditions, whereas the M9 performs great only in daytime conditions, but fails at low light and nighttime using the rear camera. And to be fully fair, the rear camera video recording is much better on the iPhone 6 than the HTC One M9. So that's the story of the rear camera. On the front side, we have a 1.2 megapixel FaceTime HD camera, which is great for selfie. It can also record video at 720p at 30 frame rates per second. The HTC One M9 has a slightly more exciting front camera, which is a 4 megapixels ultra pixel camera, which will get you superb low light selfies and can also record video at 1080p at 30 frame rates per second. In conclusion, you have great cameras on both phones with a good feature set, but the iPhone 6 camera pulls ahead in terms of producing higher quality photos and videos. The win is going to go to the iPhone 6 in this category, especially for the rear camera. So finally, let's talk about the battery. So the HTC One M9 has a battery capacity of 2,840 milliamp hours, whereas the iPhone 6 has a battery capacity of 1,810 milliamp hours. There's not much to say here really. Both devices offer relatively good battery life. With a full charge, both phones will offer you a full day of medium to heavy use. The M9 will last slightly longer due to its bigger battery. And although there seems to be a large gap in actual battery capacity in terms of milliamp hours, remember that the higher resolution screen on the HTC One M9 requires more juice. Pushing more pixels doesn't come for free. It eats battery life. Alright, so next up is benchmarks. Let's see which one of these phones is a better performer. I will use the cross-platform benchmarking tool called Geekbench, which measures the processor and memory performance. Geekbench uses workloads that simulate real-world scenarios, so it's pretty accurate in determining the speed and power of a given smartphone. So let's dive right in. So I did make sure that I canceled all the background applications before I started this benchmark, as you were watching. And here's the benchmark that is going to be running. And let me quickly fast forward this to the end so we can see the results immediately. So as you can see from these results, the M9 seems to be faster. We have a multi-core score of 3756 and a single core score of 1283. On the iPhone, we have a multi-core score of 2931 and a single core score of 1633. M9 wins in multi-core, but the iPhone 6 wins in single-core. Overall, though, we know that both of these phones are fast and snappy, but the M9 has a lead. Now, in conclusion, I would like to say something obvious, that most Apple fans will go with the iPhone 6 and Android fans will go with the M9. Let's just remember some key points. Both phones are gorgeous. They have great design and high build quality. Both phones are fast and powerful with smooth, lag-free operation. However, the HTC One M9 is vastly more customizable, whereas the iPhone 6 has a better selection of apps from the App Store. Also, the iPhone 6 has a better camera. Now, if you're an Apple fan who has been considering switching to Android, I would like to say that M9 is probably the best Android phone to switch due to its justified reputation for design and build quality. I do guarantee that you will miss the quality of the apps in the iPhone and the better camera on the iPhone. On the flip side, if you're an Android fan considering switching to the iPhone, you won't be disappointed either. You will most likely miss the deep customization features you get on Android and the M9 itself due to the Sense 7 skin, but you will be highly impressed by the app quality on the Apple side, as well as the camera capable of replacing a point-and-shoot camera. All in all, it all boils down to what you want. So don't hesitate to let us know why you think one is better than the other, as long as you actually make some sense. Also, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more videos like these, and give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and have a great day.